Turned by McKenna! Lovely cushion header. And Gerrard! What a head, son! What a head! Aguero!
Hello and welcome back to the Premier League Trio podcast. My name is Haider and I'm your host as usual today. I'm really delighted to be joined by Lee Judges. You might be familiar. You know that he's from the AFTV, but more importantly, he's co-host of the same old AFC show. So how are you doing today, Lee?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. All good, So glad to be on. Thanks for the invite, Yep.
No problem. Are you enjoying the weather? Scorcher outside.
Whew. It's absolutely. I'm glad to come in for a little while. It's a bit. I'm not going to say I don't really like complaining about the weather when it's sunny, but it is a little bit too hot out there.
It's classic British thing, isn't it? When it's a bit too hot, you complain. When it's a little bit, when it's raining, you complain. You can never win, really.
Yeah, you can never win, but it is a bit sticky out there at the moment, So
yeah,
I'm going to moan.
Absolutely. And I'm joined by my usual co-host today, Hass. How you doing today, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited to have Leon. I think it's been a long time waiting to get someone from, quite a big Arsenal platform to have a discussion. And I'm looking forward to see what he has to say, and also what you have to say, Haider, as a United fan as well.
Yeah, just here just to mediate and obviously bring down the expectations, just in case you guys get a little bit too excited. But let's just dive straight into it, Lee. And before we go into the season, because I think you've had a good end to the season, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Arteta. But let's just have a discussion about the redundancies that Arsenal sadly, obviously, announced the other day. And I just want to know your sort of views on it a little bit more, because for me, I just thought it was really disgraceful that, knowing how rich Kroenke is, that he went ahead with this, or the Arsenal board went ahead with this. And when the players took a 12.5% pay cut in April, I believe it was with the view that they were going to preserve these jobs, especially for these key staff. And I think there's a lot of frustration and disappointment amongst Arsenal fans. And, to their credit, I haven't seen one Arsenal fan that's turned around and obviously, agreed with this decision. But tell me a bit more about your views on this, and what have you heard in terms of the reasoning? Because I've seen a few things saying it's about investment in the team, and that's terrible, considering you're going to sign Willian, who's over the age of 30 on a 3-year deal.
Yeah, I think when they start saying investment for a team, that's poor, because there's certainly one way to invest in the team, and that is to spend the money that the owner's got. Where I stand a little bit on it is, if the players have actually took a 12.5% pay cut for this to happen, then I feel that's wrong. From the club's point of view. Now, obviously, I know this for a fact, that there are people going into the offices with nothing to do. Obviously, the hospitality people, I think even a few of the ex-players that are go around the tables and do all that sort of stuff are going to be made redundant, because at the moment there's no fans. So obviously that side of things you're going to have to make changes to. But obviously, hopefully, what I think the players were sort of saying, that if we drop our wages, we can cover this. Why the fans are not there, on parts of that. So it's a real difficult one. I don't like to see this, but unfortunately, I think this is not Arsenal. Not going to be the only team that's going to do this. I think that depending how long it is without the fans, a lot of other teams are going to be doing this, particularly the hospitality, particularly the unfortunate, turnstile people and things like those sort of guys that are just surely there for the fan sort of side of things. But I can see a rift happening here but when they've actually said that we're going to take a pay cut. So I don't like that sort of thing. And realistically, as you say, the owners are, and a club like Arsenal is big enough and should be big enough to be able to withhold all that sort of stuff. And basically, when you think about the TV money that's involved in football, I don't think that realistically, when they've always gone on board and saying, it's not, the fans are not always as important as what they think they are because of the TV money. Well, why make redundancies to them when when the fans are not about. So I think it suits when it suits, and I think that Arsenal are one of those clubs that are always looking to penny pinch, unfortunately, with the owners that we've got.
Yeah, spot on. I think I completely agree. And you look at Man United, I think when you look at the owners, they're very similar. It's about the penny pinching. And what United have done is they hired a PR guy to come in, and he's completely changed the image of the club. But I completely agree. I think we're going to see more clubs announce it. I suppose Arsenal are the first ones that have actually had to do it. Hass, I'm going to ask you your opinion as well on the redundancies. And, obviously it has been said that you're going to invest in the team, due to these redundancies. And do you believe that?
You never know with Arsenal, really. I think it's quite a tough one. You look at Arsenal. We are at the moment on a self-sustaining model. We've been on that self-sustaining model for quite a while now, and I've read, especially on the Athletic, a lot about the 12.5% pay cut that the players took, and there has been a lot of talk about, specifically, I think, with a lot of fans that I've seen recently, about the Mesut Ozil 350k contract, about. There's a lot of blame being put onto him about him not taking a pay cut as such, but there is good reasoning why he didn't do it. The faith in the owners to actually invest into the club and to actually buy the players that we need to strengthen our team as a whole and get back into the top four. He didn't feel like it was going to be justified. And he got a lot of flack from it. There were reports that came out of why he didn't do it, and there was a lot of blame put onto it. But obviously, there's a reason, and you look at what's happened now with 55 redundancies. I think it's worked out that maybe it'll be 3.5 million, which will be saved, which is nothing for Monkey as someone who has £8 billion. He's worth about 8 billion. So, it's not good to see a club like Arsenal to make those sort of people redundant. But I agree with Lee. A lot of them have been sort of lacking work because of no fans, the hospitality has been pretty much bare minimum. So I can kind of understand, but at the same time, it's not good to see for a club like Arsenal. But let's hope that money goes towards potentially bringing in the players that we need to strengthen and to actually help Arteta get us back potentially into the top four and where we should be.
Yeah, well said. And Lee, I'm going to come to you first on this. So, how happy are you with the Arteta appointment? Obviously, things were really dire when you had Emery there, and it was just getting from worse to worse. And bringing Arteta in was definitely a risk, and one where a lot of people, even Arsenal fans at the time, were not too sure about. With managers like Allegri around, obviously Allegri would have commanded a massive salary and other things added on. But how happy are you with Arteta, and was it the right decision to bring him in?
Yeah, I've got to say I wasn't happy at the time. I thought it was a cheap option. I'll be honest. I felt that you had other managers out there, Allegri definitely being one to mention, and obviously Pochettino as well was available if we could have gone for it. I was looking down that route of going down there, but I have to say that Mikel Arteta won me over on his first press conference. I was impressed with that. Obviously, like, talk is cheap. But from that moment on, I felt that he impressed me. And then ever since that he's been in charge, I think one of the great things about Mikel Arteta is that, just like people like George Graham and Arsene Wenger, when I go back to when George Graham was appointed, he come from Millwall. And, we was mentioned at the time, Terry Venables, big up, a lot of top-class managers at the time. We got a guy from Fulham, a guy from Millwall that we didn't really know. But look what he done, and what we was a little bit underwhelmed by that appointment, and he became one of the most successful times as an Arsenal manager, and as a fan, some fantastic times. Arsene Wenger came in, and we was mentioned in the same breath with Johan Cruyff, and Arsene who, and so we was a little bit underwhelmed by that one, and look what that turned to be like, So, and I think it's the same scenario here, and just like the other two guys, as soon as Arsene Wenger and George Graham come in, you could see a difference. There was a change. There was a change in the way we played. Arsenal come fourth in that first season under George Graham, and was at the top of the league until January, February time. But you could see there was something going on, and obviously, like, both won trophies in quick succession within their first season of the club. Mikel Arteta has done exactly the same. So, and I've just been impressed by the way Arsenal have gone about things, to go on and beat Liverpool, Chelsea, and Manchester City in the space of a couple of weeks during lockdown. It's something that it's taken us many years to do, just to beat one of them, but to beat three of them within 2 weeks and tactically beat them. Not just get a little bit of luck. I think there was a lot of thought gone into those victories, a lot of thought how to actually beat and frustrate those teams, which let's be honest, were all better than us at that moment in time. That bodes very well for the future, as far as I'm concerned, if we can get results against teams that we're not as good as with the players we've got. So what does that mean if we can get the players that Mikel Arteta wants? What a difference that we're going to be. So I feel that there's some really good positives to come from him. I like his attitude. I like the way the players, I think it's always a very, very good point to look at is when you look at players that are not playing in the team, substitutes that are not in the team, how they react to the manager. And what I've seen is all positive, celebrating with the manager after the games. And I think that's a very, very big key to see what his management is actually like. So I think now, the club have got to back him. I'll be very disappointed if he's not backed. I'll be honest, especially with the redundancies and things like that. And I expect to see some signings, not just free signings like William, which is a good signing, but we need to bolster the back and really have a big overhaul in midfield, because if you have a look at our midfield, we don't score enough goals and we don't create enough from that middle of the park. Now, I take on board that we are more of a threat going on wide areas, a little bit like Liverpool do, but I still think you need goals from midfield and creativity. So that's something they've got to look at. If they do that with the manager that we've got, I think it's very, very positive and some good times in front of Arsenal. If the players we get are that mentioned that we do get, it will give us a chance at top four and maybe challenge for the title at some point. But ultimately, we're not going to be challenging for the title when you look at the other sides, unless we invest very, very heavily.
Yeah, spot on. Something I do want to say as a United fan looking in is that I've been so impressed with how quickly he's imprinted a style of play. You can see there's patterns on pitch. You can see that the players know what they're doing. They're coached correctly, especially on that left side. And I think Bukayo Saka's been absolutely phenomenal. I think he's got such a clever, footballing brain for such a young player. He's played at left back, he's played left wing, he's played in midfield. For my opinion, that's phenomenal. And honestly, and I'm going to get a lot of sticks saying this from a lot of United fans, but if you've got to compare Arteta with Solskjaer and with Lampard, I would argue that Arteta's probably the best tactically. And as a United fan, if he's backed, it's quite a scary prospect. And I think he's done really well. What I do want to ask Hass, though, is that do you think that the FA Cup's sort of papered over the cracks of your league form? Because looking at the league, you finished 8th, worse, I believe, than last year. And do you not think that although he's done some things well, that's still a concern?
I don't think it's necessarily covered the cracks. I mean, bearing in mind, we've had 3 managers this season. And obviously under Emery, we were poor for obviously the start. We had that 1-0 win against Newcastle. And then from then it was just downhill. So I think to come back from the season that we've had, to win the FA Cup and to beat specifically City and Liverpool, which is probably the best week of my life as an Arsenal fan for a while, was very nice to see. But, I think from a tactical point of view, if you look at the way that Arteta is playing, he is not actually playing specifically the formation he wants to play. It's a 3-4-3 thing right now. He wants to actually play the 4-3-3 formation. And to adapt to the situation that he's in, to adapt to the players that he's got, I think he's done very, very well. The FA Cup is always a bonus. It's a trophy. And at the end of the day, United, Chelsea didn't win a trophy, and City obviously won one. But we to come back from where we were from at the start of January to now has been a huge improvement. And like Lee said, I was very 50-50 about Arteta. I didn't know what to expect, especially coming from City. You look at the actual impact he has as an assistant manager there. It was quite considerable, and City didn't like the way that Arsenal had approached Arteta. But for him to come in and change the philosophy and actually create a strong bridge between the fan base and the players is actually really nice to see. So no, I don't think the FA Cup has actually covered a lot of the cracks. I think there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. I think the players that need to be brought in, specifically defensively, There needs to be a massive shake-up, and you know, I'm looking forward to the future. But then again, like I said, it depends if Arteta is going to be backed by the board. It sounds like that he is, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well said, mate. And Lee, I want to ask you, what's Arteta done badly, or what does he need to improve on? Because for me, I'm just looking from as a fan from the outside. The FA Cup was great, but if you'd lost the FA Cup, it would have been a pretty poor season. So I do feel like the FA Cup has. I mean, you did amazingly to beat City and Chelsea. Like you said, beating those three big sides in the space of 2 weeks is phenomenal. And what you did is you weren't, you played pragmatically, but there was obviously a tactic, and there was obviously a style that he wanted to play. But realistically, coming 8th, no matter what players you have in your team, that squad's better than 8th, surely.
Yeah, I don't think that was nothing to do with Mikel Arteta, to be fair. I think that, if you want to look at it like from Arteta, since he took over, I think we'd have been 4th if, from the moment that he took over. So I look at that with a bit of pinch of salt. The fact of the matter is, you are only as good as the tools you've got. With the great results that we've had, we've also, when I just take it from Mikel's time in charge, we've also had some poor results. Brighton away, we didn't see off Leicester when we was totally dominant at home and ended up drawing the game. Lost to Spurs when we was, the dominant side in that game. But as far as I'm concerned, and it is a big point, you're right, a manager is only as good as the players he's got, and it doesn't matter how well you do. Ultimately, the players are not good enough for Arsenal, because where we finished in the league is 8th, and that's probably about right, So, but we've had 3 managers this season, and what I would say about those 3 managers and what I've been impressed with Arteta is that there has been improvement under him, and not just the team, all the players individually as well. So that bodes well for me, that if we actually do get the players in that he wants, then I think we can be a really, really strong. And if he can improve better players, then fantastic. And Has makes a great point that with what he was saying about with the players at the moment, the way that they are. Obviously, he's not got the players that he wants. So what he's actually doing, which Has made the point of, he's probably playing a back 3 when he doesn't really want to play a back 3. But what I feel that does is it gives him an option to play that back 3 with better players next season against a bigger, better side. So that I know that ideally he wants to play with probably a 4 and for most games. But I think that sometimes you've got to be flexible and you've got to revert to different situations against different sides. Now, say, for instance, going into next season, that when we play the big boys, i.e. the Liverpools, Manchester Uniteds, Manchester City's away from home, Chelsea away from home, if we can go in with a back 3 and do the job what he's done in these cup games against these sides, that will push us into a healthy position in the league. And I think that's very, very important. But at this moment in time, and Hash is right with this, he's playing the back 3, or he did play the back 3 for almost every game. And I don't think that he wants to do that, So the proof's in the pudding that the team where it was 8th. What he needs to do now is to make sure that they continue and on an upward curve. And that means, listen, I'm not getting excited about the summer window at the moment or transfers until I see what goes on. At this moment in time, if we carry on as we are, then I'm afraid, top 4 is a dream for us, let alone winning the title. And I think that a club like Arsenal should be looking to win or challenge for titles. I'm not saying we've got a divine right to win them, but to challenge for them, I think that we should be. So if we're not going to be doing that, we're certainly not going to be doing it with this squad of players. It needs a big overhaul, and he needs to be backed and get the right players in. Now, if that means selling a few players, then fair be it. But I think that, I'll bring up Manchester United, because obviously you're a Manchester United fan and you'll understand it a bit. Manchester United were like Arsenal before in January. Yeah, in the same sort of position, but they went out and spent the money on Fernandes, a lot of money at the time, but it was a positive move, and look what it done. It regenerated up Manchester United to where they were now, and I think personally, because of that one signing, it got them into the top 4. Now, if they didn't have made that signing, like Arsenal have done in the past, and we don't feel that we need this, I think Man United would have ended up 5th, 6th, 7th.
Yeah.
But because of that signing, they've gone and shown their ambition, and they've got to where they want to go this season. And I think that, you know, Arsenal have got to show ambition. And I think that whether you agree with what's happening at Man United or you're not with the transfer, there's always been an ambition from the club to do well. And I always feel that with Arsenal, there's not been that ambition there. And I really want to see it this season and see that the club, beyond the fans and beyond the management, want that ambition. And if they do, then us Arsenal fans are in for a very, very good ride, because under Arteta, we've got a manager that's capable of outfoxing and outgunning, particularly people like Solskjaer and Lampard, as you said. But also, you know, I look at it against Manchester City, Klopp didn't know what to do. You know, and I look at that and I think to myself that Mikel Arteta in that game set little traps all around the park for Manchester City to fall into, because he knew exactly how to beat them, and he'd done it. So I think from that point of view, I think we're in a very, very good, healthy position if the club and the manager is back. What has Arteta done wrong? I don't think he has done too much wrong. A couple of substitutions here and there, maybe the way that he's dealt with certain players, i.e. Guendouzi, could have been a little bit better. But I think that, you know, Hass will agree with this as well. You know, unfortunately, we've got a very, very good manager, but he's learning on the job. So he's going to make mistakes. He's going to make mistakes here and there. And I think that we're going to have to go with that because of what is probably going to be the long-term goal.
Yeah, spot on, Lee. And I completely agree when you talk about the signing of Bruno Fernandes. If I'm being completely honest with you, I was one of those that I can't sit here and tell you that I predicted us to get in the top four. No way. We were so far behind. And you look at the way Solskjaer was performing. We just lost to Burnley. And eventually, we should have been signing Bruno back in, you know, sort of the summertime last year. But signing Bruno, one player has just changed the club completely. Yeah. He's come in and he's set the standard. He's come in and said, you know what, drawing 1-1 to Everton like we did in one of the games, he turned around and said that is not good enough. We need to be winning games. And the mentality has completely changed. And now you've got Pogba who's come back and he wants to play, he wants to stay. And it takes one player, one top player. And you're looking at that front three now. Martial looks like a man possessed at the moment. He's really stepped up. Rashford's looked okay since the restart. Not great, but Mason Greenwood, all of this front three are now getting supplied. And I look at your front three and I think, imagine if you have a player of Bruno Fernandes' ilk that comes in and just plays those balls, lifts the standards, sets the tempo. I mean, I feel sorry for Arsenal fans. Obviously, Hass is my brother, so we watch a lot of football together. I watch Arsenal a lot. You know, whenever they're on, I'll watch them. And I feel sorry for you guys because, like Man United, our rivalry back in the day was incredible. The two biggest sides, you know, sort of for years. And it's just a shame that both our owners, you're right, we show more ambition, but both our owners are happy with top four or mediocrity. So, no, I completely agree with you. But let's move on to Aubameyang, Hass. I know you're a massive fan. And honestly, I think Aubameyang is the closest thing you're going to get to guaranteed goals. He's a genuine world-class goal scorer. And since he's come to the Premier League, his goal record's phenomenal. He's golden boot a few times, I believe, and a really, really, really top player. And I think it's really important that you guys sign him on for a new deal. I think he's definitely, you know, I guess in the plans for you guys to make it to top four and beyond. And do you think he's going to sign? And do you think he's happy? Because I think he's happy there, but I think the ambition is a big thing. And if you guys don't show ambition in the market, or there isn't guarantees, and I think, you know, there is potential that you could lose him.
Yeah, I can't speak badly about Aubameyang since he's come in to Arsenal. I mean, I think he's got the most goals scored since he's actually signed for Arsenal, which is 70. And I think Salah's got 68. So, you know, I can't fault the guy. The fight and the passion he actually has for the club is really nice to see. And, you know, I mean, if we didn't have his goals this season, we'd probably be fighting for relegation at this point. So, look, in reality, the only way that us as a team and you know, the team collectively can move forward is if Aubameyang signs that contract. You know, there are a very small limited amount of strikers who can score consistently the goals that he has scored. You know, I'd probably say Lewandowski, Timo Werner, Aguero, in that sort of standard, who can consistently bang goals in and out. And to have him in the team is he's a safe haven. He's someone who can create something out of nowhere. And it's, you know, you look at the game against Man City where he that wonderful ball from Tierney, and he went in, and it was a cool, calm, collective finish. That is world class. I think he's probably been, barring Vardy, but I think he's probably up there with the best Premier League striker at the moment in terms of form. Obviously, he's got a very good relationship with Arteta, and Arteta has been vocal about keeping him and him signing a new contract. And funnily enough, I clicked on a Instagram live, which was of Aubameyang and his brother. And I mean, the signs show that he is staying, and I think Arsenal fans should be excited if he stays. It's effectively like a new signing for us. We, at the start of the season, seeing him going was more likely than him actually staying. And Arteta, obviously, he has a huge amount of communication with him as his captain. He's consistently vocal about how important he is to the team, and it shows. I don't know any Arsenal fan that does not love him as a player and as a person. He is consistently, that relationship he has, for example, with Lacazette and stuff is great to see. He obviously is a huge part of the team, personality-wise. You didn't really know what he was going to be like as a captain of the team. Never seen it before, and he's obviously a very, very good leader. He shows it on the pitch and he shows it off the pitch. Now it really depends whether Kroenke and his cronies are actually going to back the club and actually spend the money that we need to get back to where we should be. Obviously you've seen reports of Willian coming to Arsenal, signing a £100,000 deal for 3 years. I think personally a very good signing. It's not like a defender that we have taken from Chelsea, because what our defenders like when we've taken David Louise and Petr Cech. But he obviously sees something happening at the club with the team that we had this season. To think that we would have won the FA Cup. I mean, if we hadn't won it, I think Aubameyang would have left by that point. He obviously sees that winning a trophy under the circumstances we've been in, with obviously COVID and lack of morale and motivation in the team. He's obviously seeing something which is positive. And the only person I think who could have kept him and actually convinced him to stay was Arteta. He obviously sees that there is something moving forward. Let's hope we do get the players that that we need to allow him to score more goals. Because in reality, he scored 22 goals this season, I think. If you have someone like Coutinho or even Willian behind him, imagine the amount of goals he will score with someone who can actually create play. And if you look at it with United, you have Bruno, who came in, like Lee said, he came in and he's completely transformed the team, which was suffering. They had Martial, who was not on form for a very long time. He was consistently banging in the goals. Mason Greenwood has scored, I think, 18 or 17 goals this season as a 18, 19-year-old. It says a lot about having that central midfielder who is able to create play. And for Aubameyang, that's what he needs. There are rumours that apparently Lacazette will be leaving if Aubameyang signs a new contract. If it is the case, it's a huge shame. I love Lacazette, but I think in priority and with what we need in terms of moving forward from a striker perspective, Aubameyang is the way to go. And let's hope in the next week or so that he does sign, because I love the guy. He is an Henry-esque type player for me, and that's a big thing. That's a big thing to say. I don't know if Lee agrees, but he's coming into the team last couple of years. No player has come in with that sort of tenacity and goal scoring record for a long time at Arsenal, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, top player. Do you agree, Lee? And what are the whispers inside the club? I'm sure you must have heard a thing or two over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think Mikel Arteta said he was going to sign, and Mikel Arteta has actually said that the club's going to back him, and so I believe, why would Arteta come out and say that? And it does look like that it's already been done and dusted, and he is going to sign. But I question that in a couple of things as to why he would sign, unless he's been given promises that the club are going to make some signings. Because if I was him, I wouldn't be looking to. If I'll be honest, if I was him, I wouldn't be signing until there is some better players coming through the door, or at least been promised that there will be, because otherwise he's going to end up finishing where he was last season. I think if I look at Aubameyang and there's a little bit too much there about the Thierry Henry bit, but I think that what he is a world class goal scorer. I don't know about striker. I don't think he's a world class striker. His hold up play is not as good as what he should be. And things like that. But when we're talking about goals, he is up there with the very, very best. And he's proved that, I mean, we wouldn't have won the FA Cup if it wasn't for him, even though there was, I think, better players on the day than him in the cup final, i.e. Ceballos, in the semi-final, i.e. David Luiz. Ultimately, it comes down to, winning games is who scores more goals. And, he's there to get the chances. And when you've got chances, there's no other one you want more than Aubameyang to be there. And the goal that he scored against Chelsea in the final was sublime. Then the one against Watford with the overhead kick, and the one against Man City in the first goal was an absolute a very, very difficult chance. And also you have to look at the penalty as well. He can take penalties. So I think when it comes to goal scoring, there's no one about. And I think that the trouble is, if you're going to let him go or replace him, it's going to cost you 70, 80 minimum to replace someone like that. So, if you're going to have to give him an extra £100,000 a week, it just makes sense that you've got to do that. So hopefully it'll be done. And then that will make like a domino effect that we're going to sign some more players.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, looking from the outside, I agree with you. I don't know why he would sign unless... Look, Aubameyang's a winner. He's 31 years old. He wants to win trophies. He wants to be competing. He shouldn't be languishing down near 10th place. I just think that, honestly, until what I saw at the FA Cup, you guys winning it, I would have thought 100% he's off. But for me, I think it honestly depends on who he is actually who's going to sign him or who can afford to sign him. I know there's rumours of Barcelona, maybe PSG, but they've just signed Icardi. So perhaps maybe the only option is for him to stay. But if I was him, I would do the same. I just think to Wayne Rooney back in the day when he put in a transfer request because United was signing Chris Smalling and Bebe and City was signing David Silva and Aguero. And I just remember him, he's a winner. He wanted to win. And Aubameyang strikes me as a similar sort of character that I don't think he's there for the money. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think he would take payday to try and he wants to win. I'm a massive fan, but I agree with you. I think his hold-up play is something which isn't the best. And I guess that's probably why he's been playing off the left because Lacazette does that better. But let's look at areas where you need to invest in. I don't know, you might have some players. If you don't, that's fine. Just let me know what positions. But where do Arsenal need to invest and who's likely to depart? Haas says Lacazette. I think if you can get 50 million for Lacazette, I'd be biting your arm off for it because although he's a good player, I don't think he's prolific enough. You need to be investing elsewhere in the squad. And I do like the look of Martinelli. I think he's a good player. And Nketiah is a good player as well. So who would you be bringing in and who's likely to depart the club? Mesut Ozil as well. I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, so, I think,
yeah,
and this is a difficult one for me about Lacazette because I think that I do like him. His hold-up play is really, really good and he does bring in there, but I don't think he's clinical enough. And I think that maybe, not surplus requirements is a tough word. I think we could get by without him. So if we can get 30, 40 million pounds for him and maybe invest in another, like a creative midfield player that could help us get somebody, I still feel like we need somebody like a Grealish or a Coutinho been mentioned. If we can do something like that, then I feel that would be a good move for us there. I think that we need to look at our midfield tremendously because I think that, as we alluded a little bit earlier on, when we play a back three, we lose that extra man in midfield. So if we can sort out our back four, that gives us the extra man in midfield there where we can create. So I feel that you can get a creative player like a Coutinho, like a Grealish, somebody of that ilk to go in there. But I still think that we need to improve in the midfield. And I think we still need to have somebody like, when you look at teams that win things, someone big and strong that's going to be dominant in the midfield. Now, going back in the day, we had Patrick Vieira, and then he could screen out our very, very good central defenders. We've got no one screening our very, very weak central defenders at the moment. So I feel that that's something that we've got to look at there. Someone like Partey, obviously is an obvious one. But even if not him, someone like Decore at Watford, somebody of that ilk that could do the job. But I think where we've really got to invest is in the central defensive area. There is a lot of talk about Gabriel. Don't really know too much about him, but what I've seen is someone that we need. So then when you look at next season, the possibility of a back four of, say, I know Maitland-Niles has been mentioned about going, but say that if he stays, Maitland-Niles 23, Saliba 20, Gabriel 2023, Tierney 23. All of a sudden, with a little bit of experience in David Louise as well back there, all of a sudden that's a very, very young back four that can be groomed and can be played for 5, 6, 7 years, and that would be a foundation for Arsenal to go forward with good defenders that can improve as well as be good. So there is that thing there that they can do that. They've still got Mari that can come in as well, who I think wouldn't be a bad signing. But then you've got somebody in front of them like Partey that can block it all up, and then they would allow the players, in whoever they do decide to buy from up front going forward. A little bit of mention of Zaha still being mentioned. Who knows? That's something that the club can work on and do there. But once they've got that spine sorted out, now I believe that in Martinez or Leno, we've got a very, very good goalkeeper. We've got 2 options there. We've then got the central defenders. We've got the big, strong central holding midfielder. All of a sudden, we've got a spine. And once you've got a spine, then you can start moving things around in certain areas. And all of a sudden, Arsenal are a different side to what they have been over the last few seasons. And that's a fact. Now, that's not going to take too much money. It's going to take, I think Partey is around about 40, 50 million. If you sell someone like Lacazette and Guendouzi, there you've got 60, 70 million funds already. That's without their owners even spending any money themselves. So you could get that done. Obviously, Mesut Ozil getting off the wage would be fantastic. And of course, the biggest important thing about winning the FA Cup was that we moved into Europe, and that means fair play then is scrapped. If you're in Europe, it's got a year of leniency. So, for instance, really, the club needs to invest this season because it can get away with it where they ain't going to be able to in the future. So, it's a massive summer for Arsenal, and one that I feel that they've got to make a few sacrifices along the way. If it is a Lacazette or a Guendouzi or even Maitland-Niles, I don't agree with that one, but in the long run, if it is to get other players in more priority positions, then I think that you've got to back what the manager's saying and go for it. And I think that it's a good thing to do. And I feel that we'd be in a very, very healthy position come the end of the season, the beginning of the season, if that is the case.
Yeah, really well said. And something you touched on was Thomas Partey. And something I will say is, noticing as a United fan, when we didn't have Matic in the team, the central defence was so much more shaky. Having a top defensive midfielder there, someone with legs. If you look at our defensive pair, you look at Maguire, obviously it's well documented. A lot of people call him a fridge or he's slow or whatever. But it's well documented that Matic coming in has definitely solidified. And having a top defensive midfielder there improves the defence. So I don't know if you need to go and spend another defender. I know the Gabriel rumours are circling, and he's a good player, but I think you've got a lot of options there. I mean, I'm a bit puzzled. I'll go back to you, Lee, before I go on to Haas. I'm going to ask Haas about Ozil, but Lee, why did David Luiz get a new contract? I think David Luiz is actually not as bad as everyone says he is. I think he's a very good footballer. Definitely more, sort of comfortable in the back three. We saw that when he won the league at Chelsea. And he's just got a bit of a mistake in him, but I just don't understand why he was signed on for another year or so, or a couple of years.
Well, I'm hoping it is because he's going to have a lot of younger players around him. So he's going to have the legs around him like Saliba, and obviously let's say it is Gabriel. It could be somebody else. Let's say it is, and you've got 2 young players. And what you need, don't matter how good you are or what you're going to be, you still need a bit of experience along the way teaching you how to do it. Tony Adams was a great player for Arsenal. We had David O'Leary teaching him. Now, I'm not saying that David Luiz is going to teach you all the great things, but what he will do is, if he performs like he did against Manchester City and Chelsea, he's still a player. He's fantastic in those games. Yes, he's got a mistake in him, but I think that there are times next season when Arsenal will play against the big boys with a back three, and I'm as with you love him or hate him in a back three, I don't think there's that many players better than him. Put him into a back two, I think he struggles. So I feel that, I think this is very, very clever from the manager that he's looking at, certain games that he's going to play in. And don't forget you've got European games as well. So you're going to need a squad. And I think that, for another year to let the experience of, with the inexperience of, say, someone like Saliba coming into the side and hopefully Gabriel, that they're going to need a little bit of time. So, I think it's a wise move from that point of view. What I wouldn't be happy with, and I'll tell you this now, guys, if no central defenders signed and they're continuing with this, because I think then it shows you that there's not the great ambition. But what I feel and I hope is that these young guys are going to come in and they're going to need a little bit of guidance. And as I say, like David Luiz, is a serial winner, by the way. Let's not, 17 trophies this guy's won. That brings you something to the party and something to the table. You don't win all those trophies from being a bad player or a lucky player. You've got to have some ability to be in teams that are winning trophies. And for whatever reason, whatever you think, he is a serial winner.
No, I do agree. I think he's definitely one of the most disrespected players around, to be honest. I actually don't think he's a bad player. I think in the back three, you're right, there's not many better. But Hass, what do you think of Lee's comments, and what is your thoughts on the Mesut Ozil situation? Because I kind of look at the similarities between Alexis Sanchez at Man United and obviously the situation with Ozil, and we just had to get Sanchez's wages off the books. And I think that's what you've got to do at Arsenal, whether he just goes for free like Sanchez did essentially. But having a player on that higher wage who's essentially not playing is so damaging, not only to bring other players, and you could bring in 3-4 good players on that wage, but also just the morale. But I don't really understand what the situation is with Ozil, so I'm going to ask you just to give us a sort of a lowdown on what's going on there.
So yeah, going on to Lee's comments, especially about David Luiz. No, I completely agree. I think he's actually a very good player. Like Lee said, you have to play him under the back three. He has a little bit more support from left and right, and in terms of his playmaking, he's a very good distributor of the ball. In terms of transfers, I just want to say I would look potentially, if we can't get someone like Coutinho or someone who is in that attacking midfield, look for someone like Houssem Aouar from Lyon, very good player. And in terms of the Gabriel situation, I think you look at him as a player. He's been bouncing around for the past couple of years around the French league, and he actually wasn't starting at the start of the season for Lyon. And I think one of their defenders got injured, and he was playing next to Jose Fontes, and he actually played very, very well with him. And I think if you're going to bring in a defender, having David Luiz there as, like Lee said, experience is a very good thing, considering we're going to have quite a young defence, especially with Saliba coming in. There's a lot of hype around him, and I think one thing that we need to be careful of is not to overhype him, because he's only 19 or 20 years old. You can't put this much pressure on a player and expect them to perform straight away, because it's not. The Premier League is a very different league to the French league. In terms of physicality and pace, it is completely different. So let's hope that we bring in someone to fill the void that we have, and let's hope a couple of defenders like Socrates, Mustafi, players like that are surplus to requirements. We can get rid of them. But going on to the Ozil situation, that's been going on for years now, and I think he was pictured in Istanbul with, I think, one of the managers of Istanbul, Başakşehir, or something like that. They won the league recently, the Turkish league, in the Champions League this season for the first time, winning the Turkish title. There were rumours around that he is looking, or that Arsenal are looking to get rid of him, because £350,000. He didn't ask for it to be on that sort of money, and he has been a target for the past couple of years because of that fee that he was given per week. You can't blame him for being on that money. That is obviously Arsenal's bad negotiations with him. I mean, the amount of money that would free us up for players that we need would be huge. I mean, I think it's about £18 million he gets a year. My personal view on him is, if I was Arsenal, I would pay him off. Okay, it's a lot of money, but freeing up that space of someone who's sitting there consistently, not even on the bench, but is just sitting there at home, not really having any effect to the team, is a waste of space in reality. He had, I think when Arteta came in, he played the first couple of games, or first games before COVID hit, and he was actually pretty good for us. We had he had created, I think he's created the most chances for Arsenal this season when he has played. He does create chances. Okay, his in terms of assists and goal ratio, it is very suspect. It has been for the past couple of years. But like we said in our previous podcast, Ada, about Arsenal, is that he's had a tale of two halves at Arsenal. When he first came in, he was brilliant. He was, he was so consistent in terms of assists. He was going to break Thierry Henry's record until Giroud went on a 20-game streak of not scoring a goal, so it didn't really help us. But, after I think Alexis Sanchez left, he really dipped in form, and him and Alexis were brilliant together. If I would in that situation, I probably would have given Ozil over Alexis, because I think
I would have taken Ozil over Alexis. I think that's the player we needed at the time.
Exactly. I think Ozil would have fitted United's philosophy a little bit better than Alexis would have. And Alexis was on form; he was on fire at Arsenal. And it's a shame what happened to him at United, but quite funny at the same time. But with Ozil, this is an ongoing saga. This is something that will carry on through the transfer window. I love him. I someone that I won't necessarily criticize just because he's on that much money, or he obviously shows he's a big influence in the club just by his name and the way he is. But when you're sitting there and not even contributing to the team, he's not there to play football. He's just there to get the money that he's been given. So, it is a very tough one. I think he's been a big servant to the club for the past couple of years. He has had a really rough time last 2 or 3 years, to his own fault to an extent. But we need to look to move these sort of players on to actually move forward as a club. I think Ozil's one of these people that we need to get rid of as soon as possible.
Yeah, well said. Lee, you got anything to add on Ozil? I mean, surely he's got to be of some use. Is it a talent thing? Is it an attitude thing? What have you heard?
No, listen, I agree with what Has saying a little bit there. I mean, I think his ability, he's one of the best footballers for natural ability that I've ever seen. I'll be honest, it's fantastic, but he just doesn't do it enough. I look at the game against Chelsea in the FA Cup final. First 10, 15 minutes, we were struggling. And we needed someone to get on the ball and grab the game by the scruff of the neck and start playing, start pulling the strings. I've not seen Mesut Ozil do that for a very, very long time. But what I did see was someone like Ceballos doing that. And that's the difference, somebody that's a very, very good player has the ability of Mesut Ozil, probably not. But I'll tell you what, he's got the heart and courage of a lion. And that is something that Mesut Ozil hasn't got. And unfortunately in the Premier League, I just think that you need that. Also, what I do feel on Mesut Ozil, I feel that, when as Asher said, was doing really well, he had somebody like Alexis Sanchez, who was on fire, one of the best players in Europe, let alone in the Premier League. Aaron Ramsey playing like the player that we knew he would be before injuries, when he would stretch play. By what I mean by that, he was going beyond the forwards, stretching things, and it was opening up lots of pockets of space for someone like Mesut Ozil, and he exploited it. Unfortunately, those two players have gone, and I feel that he hasn't got the players around him to really function, and people will go on, well, he's got Aubameyang and he's got Lacazette and all that, different players, and that is the thing. But I think now we've just got to cut our losses on him now and just say that he was great for us at some part of the season, but ultimately the last couple of years it's not well. There's no coincidence that the last couple of managers have not played him. And, for whatever reason, Mikel Arteta's not playing him. When you look at the way Arsenal played in the games against Liverpool, Manchester City and Chelsea, then he's not going to get in the team, because it is like workers in midfield. You're going to have to shut down all the things that perhaps, let's be honest, is the weakest parts of his game. When you're a very, very good, and I think it was a great point you said there. I think if you'd gone to Man United, who were probably, when you look at Man United, they've got Pogba, they've got Tomini, and they've got Fred in that midfield that are a little bit more solid. He would have had the Fred, and he could have flourished like Fernandes has. Who knows? But that Arsenal are not at that stage where we can have a luxury, and he is a luxury player like Mesut Ozil. Now, we've had luxury players in the past. And I'll be honest, we've had players like Robert Pires that was a very, very much of a luxury. But he was surrounded by world-class players, and world-class player himself, by the way. But so, Mesut Ozil's never really been surrounded by world-class players in his time at Arsenal. He's had a few, but he's never been surrounded in them. And unfortunately, someone of the way that he is and his demeanour and all that, he needs to be surrounded by world-class players.
Yeah, well said. You don't have the luxury, do you, to carry a player? You're not
No.
Man City, Liverpool, and that's the reality. Yeah, completely agree. All right, Lee, let's go on to the last point and ask Cass after. But what's the realistic expectation for Arsenal next season? Because let's just assume that you bring in the players that you want, because that is a big if, isn't it? If he's not backed, then what can Arteta do? It's like operating with one arm behind your back. But as a United fan, I think Arsenal definitely have the makings of a good side. I'll be honest. For us, we have to get third. We have to close that points gap. We can't be 30 points behind behind the scouts or something. That just can't happen again. And yeah, we've got to get out of our group at least for the Champions League. If we're spending big, we've got to get at least to the quarterfinals. I think we've got to win a trophy. But let's assume that Arsenal are in the same situation. They get all their targets. What represents a good season for Arteta, and what's that, that sort of stepping stone in progress? Because people can't expect him to go and challenge for the title, because it's just not realistic.
No, exactly. And I think that what is the key is that I think that with Arsenal is that, and this is why we moved to the Emirates, is because we expect some big signings. And I do expect Arsenal to make some big signings this season. We can't carry on drifting as we are, because it comes to a stage that we was 4th, 5th, now we're 6th, 7th, 8th. If we carry on as we are, we're going to be in the relegation zone. So we've got to bite the bullet and make some signs. I do believe that Arsenal will make those signs. And what I think will be what I expect next season is, I'm not saying we're going to win the league by any chalk and mace, but I expect us to be in the melting pot at some stage of it, like challenging for it, challenging for the top 4. But I think that when you look at the top 4, you've got to be realistic here. Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, and Liverpool, I think, are all better than us. They're all going to invest. So it's going to be very, very hard to break into that to that back 4. When people say top 4, I find that going to be very, very difficult to break into. So for me, I think it's a challenge to try and get into the top 4 and challenge for it. But for me, I think what will be a real good season is winning the Europa League, because that will give us the chance of Champions League football. So I think that's got to be prioritised, like the FA Cup was this season. Really go for it. Get to the Europa League. Now, we don't really know what the format's going to be in that at this moment in time, but if it's just a one-game knockout, listen, there's not many better teams on a one-game knockout than Arsenal, as it's been proved in the FA Cup this season. So I think that could be working our advantage. So I would definitely be looking to do that to get into the top 4. But I think it is to push into the top 4 and try and get in there. Now, what I do think will happen can happen with the top 4, again, depending on the format, is you have got Man United, you've got Chelsea, maybe not so much Manchester City and Liverpool, because I think they've done it over the last few years. But if they're pushing in the Champions League, it may be a little bit too much for them to be pushing in the league as well. If that is the case, I'm not saying it is, but if it is the case, we've got to be there ready to pounce and make that happen. And that's what I expect to happen. I think if we get the players, say if we got Gabriel and Partey, I think as 2 players coming in, I think it's a very, very key thing that we sign Ceballos for another season as well, and get in somebody like a Coutinho in that midfield. I think that, expectations will go high for Arsenal because of we're expecting a little bit more. But I think that if we could get into the top 4, I think that would be a realistic aim with those players.
Yeah, spot on. I completely agree. I think looking the way that Man United and Chelsea are looking to spend, it's going to be big, isn't it? If they're looking at Jadon Sancho, 120 million. And we just have to be realistic here, that Arsenal are not going to go and spend that much on one player. But I do think, I'm a massive fan of Gabriel. I believe we're interested, but I do think he's going to go to Arsenal. But looking at sort of Coutinho, I think he could be a really shrewd signing. He needs a manager that's going to put his arm around his shoulder and say to him, look, you're going to be the main man. And look, there's no doubting Philippe Coutinho is a wonderful player, but his stock's obviously dropped a little bit. But it could be a very shrewd signing. And Has, last few words, what's a realistic season expectation for next year? And do you agree with Lee?
No, I agree with Lee. I think top 4 next season is going to be quite a tough ask. Just look at the way that Chelsea have been spending their money. I mean, they're potentially going to get Havertz on top of Ziyech and Werner. I think one thing that we have and one thing that we potentially could challenge for is obviously Europa League. That is I think a big chance of getting to top 4. You look at this season, that game against Olympiacos was heartbreaking after that wonderful goal from Aubameyang, and to not get where to not progress was very, very tough for us. But it really depends on how the board really spend and support Arteta. I think they are obviously gonna support him in the long run. Really depends on how what sort of players we bring in. We need that experience. We do also need a bit of versatility when it comes to especially playing at the back. He wants to play at the back formation. So having the players who can play with both feet or understand the concepts that Arteta is trying to get at is very important for us. But look, we have a chance to make it into the top 6 again. I think this season, the Premier League has been quite an average season. If you look at, I think, 3rd place this season would have actually got 5th last season. So the standard is actually it's becoming more and more close between, the bottom teams to the top teams. Obviously, you've got City and Liverpool are in a different dimension, so you can't compare. But with Arsenal, look, you've got to be realistic to where we are. The rebuilding process will take a while. I'm guessing having Arteta will probably take 2 to 3 years till we can actually talk about potentially, and this is a big ask, even getting close to a title challenge. But it really, like I said, it really depends on the players that are bought, and I hope Arsenal or the owners can pull their thumb out of their arse and actually look to invest in a manager who has a lot of potential. So I'd probably say maybe top 6, 5th at most. I definitely think we're going to take top. I mean, no doubt about it. I don't think Mourinho there. I don't think he stands a chance of progressing as manager. So yeah, top 6, I think.
Nice one. And that's it. Lee, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problems. Really enjoyed it. I just want to say one thing quickly. I think that with the signings of Man United and Chelsea are possibly going to make, puts a lot of pressure on the 2 managers. Yeah. So I think that Mikel Arteta is not going to have that pressure. So we need to take advantage if that is the case, So
what I do want to say is, it might be a bit cheeky, but Pochettino is still available. So
it could happen. I think
anyone that thinks otherwise is crazy. But honestly, Lee, thank you very much. And Has,
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for that, and good luck with your channel and everything. Brilliant. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks very much.